Good afternoon. Welcome to the afternoon session of BOCC. Today we're going over reports from departments. So Commissioner Weber's probably still headed back from Rotary, so he'll be popping in whenever. So why don't we just start Youth and Health Services? Just run down the list.
Okay, Gina James, Health and Human Services. I just had a couple items for the board today. Wanted to just go over quickly some upcoming items that we have. I heard you mention it this morning, but tomorrow work session, CAP will be here to talk about Meals on Wheels. So we have that discussion tomorrow. On June 6th, we will have a couple of DD items on the regular Tuesday agenda. These are DD amendments we talked a little bit about last month. So I think those are planned for June 6th, Tuesday meeting. And then Wednesday work session on June 7th, we have Larry Wood coming to talk about his idea for micro home senior community. I think it just says micro home community on the agenda.
I got you.
Yeah, so that's Larry Wood's proposal.
Now that's a micro home or for seniors and a micro home?
I think his whole concept is for seniors. Yeah. So those are just some items we have coming up on the board's public meeting calendar. And then I wanted to quickly circle back. I think Carolyn had mentioned this yesterday that the state's allocating some money to help with the decrease in document recording fees. And so we received notice of that as well. It sounds like from the Department of Commerce, it sounds like the way that's coming to us is they're going to be including that in our Consolidated Homeless Grant contract. And so that's the application that we had talked about and approved submitting a while back that has the HIN funding and the eviction prevention funding, those pieces. So the state's going to add that funding in that contract.
In that contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the
Of course.
Yeah.
57,000. It'll be separate by state fiscal year. So it's like 128,000 per year. So
it's not totally granted the same way the doc fees are granted?
no, but I will say the language we've gotten so far says that the funding can be used for, it references the Consolidated Homeless Grant Guidelines, but it also says any other allowable use of local document recording fees. So it sounds like they're not putting limits on that we could use it the same way we could as if we were spending it locally. So
Okay.
we'll see if that carries through in the final contract, but so far it's looking good. So
Okay.
That seems strange, doesn't it? I mean, we're going to treat it exactly as if it came as a doc recording, or we could. And so I don't know why they didn't leave it alone. I mean, we could always use doc recording fees to do stuff that's allowed in the consolidated contract.
yeah, I don't know if it has to do with where the funding is coming from, since it's not document recording fees. It's, from the state's budget somewhere.
It's some of those thin air funds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that reminds me, it's another thing. I don't know what the numbers are, but I think that 128 is going to be a fraction of what would have been a straight line estimate into the future.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah. So that's what I know on that. And
Yeah.
when we see the final contract for that grant, it will have that as a budget line in there.
The CAP people are those the ladies we had an opportunity to talk with?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Good,
They will be here.
good,
Mhm.
good. Okay.
Yep. And then the last thing I wanted to touch base on, regarding the opioid settlement dollars. I had a chance to meet briefly last week with the city managers of Longview and Kelso to talk about the Opioid Abatement Council, which is a requirement of those funds. So it sounds like both cities are interested in developing that just locally, between Cowlitz, Longview, and Kelso, sort of being our own opioid abatement council. There was some discussion about working with some other counties as well. So I had a meeting with Pacific County and Grays Harbor County to talk about that option as well. I think Pacific was looking for another county to do more of the work on behalf of their county. And so we're still kind of thumbing through that piece a little bit. I think after talking to other counties and learning more about the work that they're hoping sort of a lead county would take with the Opioid Abatement Council, I think my preference would be to stick to a smaller council with Cowlitz, Longview, Kelso included.
Included or only?
Only.
Okay.
Yeah. And I say that partly because I think some of the other counties are hoping for more work to be done by a lead county. And it sounds like they are willing, that they're working together, that the other counties are working together. And I think Grays Harbor was willing to take the lead with their a council. And so I'm happy to partner with the other counties, however it makes the most sense. I just feel like it might make the most sense for us to kind of stick
with
locally.
Longview, Kelso, and Grays, kind of hook up with Pacific.
Yeah.
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 Run that by again to be sure. Just us.
Yeah, and Grays Harbor hook up with Pacific County
Right.
and help them.
And Wakayam?
I reached out to Wakayam just this morning. I haven't heard back from them because they were the other county where, they're very small and
Right.
I'm not sure what their plan is.
Yeah.
It wouldn't bother you if we included them?
No. I think for me, and some of the conversation we had with the other counties is I'm happy to partner with any county, but I don't know that I would want Cowlitz to take the lead with doing some of the administrative functions, depending on what that looked like.
But you would be happy if we were Cowlitz and the municipalities and Wakayam to take the lead?
Yes.
Okay.
And when I say that, I think there's not a ton of responsibility that comes with that, but I think some of the other counties were looking for that to be more responsibility.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
hoping to shift some of that to that role. So
We have to have a plan in place by the end of June. Are you comfortable with that kind of setup or local plus Wakayam to have David start working on putting? Do you
I'm
think that
comfortable with that. Yeah.
the cities are comfortable with that?
Yeah, the cities were open to partnering with others as well, or at least the city managers. I can't speak for the whole councils, but they were open to that. And depending on what Wakayam wants to do, I'm happy
Okay.
to work with them.
You still working with David on that too? to
Yeah.
Put that
Yep.
together? Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's
Like
good
it.
progress.
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
it,
that's
yeah.
good.
Any more definitions on what those funds can be used for? Still waiting for better classification.
Well, I mean, the document they sent as an attachment, it's fairly lengthy in terms of the allowable uses.
Okay.
Um,
Lengthy meaning it's pretty broad, or lengthy meaning it has a lot of rules?
I think it's fairly broad. I'm not sure, have you seen it?
I don't recall seeing it, no.
It's the same type of activities that are allowed under the state's opioid response plan. So it kind of has different categories. It has like a prevention category and it lists some specific allowable uses there. It has a treatment category and it lists some specifics there. If there's something that the board is thinking of, I'm happy to dig through and see if I can find it in there. If there's an idea that had come to mind.
The only reason I asked, because when they were talking about if the Blake fix, if there wasn't one put in place, the county or the cities were looking at an ordinance and I kept asking, well, how are you going to fund some of this? And it always comes back to opioid funds. And I'm going, well, I'm not sure I've seen everything that it can fund yet. So I'm just kind of asking to see what that all covers.
Okay, okay.
And, but that's not to say we would interfere with them. I mean, if they wanted to do that, it would be on their.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, absolutely. I'm not
Yeah,
looking to interfere. I'm just trying to understand where it can all go.
and this applies to both tranches or just to the latest one?
I believe both.
Okay, the initial funding is included in this.
I think so.
Abatement Council?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure on that. We've
Yeah.
not received a lot of communication about how it all.
Yeah, my impression is they got an afterthought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that was all I had unless there was
Okay.
something from the board.
No, I appreciate the updates.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Better have glasses. Just following along, environmental health? No, but we're good. Okay. And I don't know if the museum's here. I wouldn't know.
Don't see Joseph here.
Public defense, I don't see, I see Kim. No, event center was next.
Event Center is right next to Noxious Weeds. I wonder if there's a tie in there.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kim Bocut with the Cowlitz County Event Center. I have a few things, just some updates for you. The first, coming from the Cowlitz County Fair and Thunder Mountain Pro Rodeo coming up in July. We have some exciting news that for the first time in several years, we're going to be offering open horse classes, which may or may not mean anything to you, but for probably decades, we've only offered classes for 4-H and not open, so the rest of the community can participate. And so we have some volunteers that have stepped up to help us put together those classes. So our open horse barn has been pretty sparse over the years, and so we're excited to be able to welcome more horses to the fair.
How, who's responsible there?
As
We're not contracting to a horse school.
Oh, no. No, we have some volunteers. Our entire fair is ran by volunteers. They're called superintendents. And they put together the classes and manage the points that come back to the office, and we pay premiums to exhibitors for the fair. And so we have had an open horse class superintendent for many years, and we've had open horses, but there's been nothing for them to do when they're there. So now they'll be able to bring their horses and participate in different classes.
I think this is an excellent thing.
Yeah.
I wonder though, someone no doubt is going to complain, I don't like Superintendent A or something. How?
Nothing goes without complaints.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they would direct complaints to you?
That's usually where it ends up and on
Well,
my
in
desk.
that case,
Yeah,
We're just trying to deflect them off ourselves, Kim.
correct, correct.
we're kind of jealous, aren't we?
So how entering the fair works is that we put out, it's called a premium book. And you can enter your baked goods, you can enter your duck, you can enter your cow, you can enter many different things into the fair. And so we cast the net broad. And then we capture those entries. Animal entries are all due by July 1st. And then we set up classes. And then as the animals move in, we have specific places for them to go. Same thing with all of the still life exhibits like baked goods and sewing and flowers and things like that. They all have their different departments that they go into. So we're casting the net wide with this open horse classes. The classes have not yet been announced, and then we'll develop those classes as we get closer. But I It could be a stretch, but I believe it was probably the late 80s or early 90s since we've had open horse classes. I could be completely wrong, but the ladies that I met with last night have a lot more history than I do, and they couldn't remember the year, but that's when we guessed. So it's pretty exciting to bring this back to our fair.
I think it's really nice to see the horse arena being used.
It is. And during the fair, our 4-H enrollment has gone down a bit. And so we don't have a lot of horses at the fair. And that is one of the complaints that I have fielded over the last couple fairs, that, you know, people are excited to see the horses and there's not very many, and why. So
Yeah.
we're hoping to bring those back. At the event center, we just wrapped up 2 national dog shows. I gave you the report last month that they were moving in. They are moving out. We are all still alive over there. We've been very, very busy though. And I had the event coordinator for that event put together some stats for me to share with you. People from over 20 states and Canada attended that show, or the 2 shows. Camping nights at our facility only. So we have not tracked hotel rooms yet. We're still waiting for those numbers, but they had 569 camping nights in 18 days at our facility.
569.
Yes. Yep.
569 what?
Camping nights. So we,
Oh, camping.
yep. So we bill by the night at the event center. So when people bring their RV in, they're billed by the night. And so we billed 569 camping nights.
Wow.
Was this a live streamed event?
I believe they did have some live streams on their own web pages. They were on site for 16 days. 3 of those days, both shows were happening at the same time. They had an overlap in the middle. They used 11 of our outbuildings, the entire event center, the conference center, and carnival grounds during these 2 shows. So just to give you quick stats. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I was over there to talk with your planners. The Dalmatian dog show was going there everywhere, spots everywhere.
It was,
I'd be interested in what the hotel nights are, because that would translate and tell you how busy the little proposed hotel could be.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yes, the kickoff meeting with Johnson Consulting and the Public Facilities District was held on May 10th and 11th. Just a reminder, they were hired by the Public Facilities District Board, and they were hired to update the master plan created in 2010 for the entire 48 acres of the event center. The Johnson Consulting brought in MIG property planning company. It's called MIG. They came in also and for that initial interview and walk of the grounds, and they were very enthusiastic. They were there for 2 days. I believe they're out of Chicago. And that's going to be, it was the first of a 20-week process. So those were the first couple days. So more to come on that, but it was really interesting to hear what they had to say.
It was, I appreciated being asked. It was interesting. The one guy, I think is from this, as we're sitting and talking, and they're talking about ideas, he's just sketching it out. And by the end of the time we're talking, you can look at this sketch of, you know, all the ideas you talked about and what it would look like. It was fairly interesting to watch him work, to be honest with you.
That was the planner from MIG.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. So more to come on that. There is no new report on the status of the hotel. The current property, or the current hotelier that's interested in the property, has until this Friday to come up with a plan to present to the Public Development Authority.
Until this Friday?
Until this Friday. And that was an extension. I believe the initial deadline was in March.
Yeah.
So again, more to come on that.
At that time, we expect a signed contract of some kind with.
I believe so. I would be speaking out of turn if I could confirm that.
Yeah.
So upcoming events, before I get to my last thing, upcoming events at the event center. We have an all-student art show. Kelso, Longview school districts are in-house until Thursday. That's an art show that's open to the public. June 1st, we have Jordan Brothers Circus coming to our outdoor arena. Mid-June, and I don't know the exact dates, I believe it's the 16th, 17th and 18th, but again, I might be wrong. We have what's called the Paranormal Circ coming. And then we have the Heaven Car Show. It's helping every veteran in need is holding a car show on June 24th. So those are events coming up this month or coming up in the month of June that are open to the public.
That's all in the month of June?
Yes.
Hmm.
That are open to the public.
And the circus is going to be in the arena,
Correct. Outdoor arena.
open air, no
Yep.
tent.
Mhm. The Paranormal Circ will be in the 7th Avenue field across from the fairgrounds behind where the farmer's market is. And they will be a self-enclosed tented area with the fence around it. And parking will be over there also.
So how do you get these things?
The Jordan Brothers Circus has been coming to us for years. They go to fairgrounds, they kind of have a tour. The art show again is something that's been coming to us for many years. The paranormal
Has or
Circ-
hasn't happened?
oh, what's that?
Has or hasn't happened for many years?
The art show has been there for quite a few
So
years.
did we have one last year?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Rebookings. Rebookings are key for us. We try to give the best customer service possible and we like those rebookings are easy to just, when they leave, we sign them up for the next year and fill our calendar. The paranormal circ came to us via phone call. And I'm not sure if that was something that they heard from on a website, if it was a Google search, I'm not positive where that came, but that came to one of our coordinators as a phone call, an inquiry to book with us. And the Heaven Car Show is one that we tried to book last year and the dates that they wanted weren't available. So they went to another venue and came back to us this year.
You also had the big machines. Is that going to come? also?
Extreme Machines will be with us in September.
Yeah.
That'll be a busy weekend. We have Extreme Machines that weekend. We have Washington State High School Rodeo out in our rodeo grounds that weekend. And there's one more thing that I'm forgetting, but that will be a busy weekend in September.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the claims that we don't use the facilities enough, and it doesn't sound like it based on what you just said.
Mhm.
Okay.
Most any time I drive by the parking lot, there's people there.
Yeah.
The most
No.
grating comment that I hear is it's the most underutilized piece of property. And I think, well,
Well, I'm happy you didn't jump over to slap me.
sometimes my tongue bleeds from biting it. And then lastly, the fire suppression system in our indoor arena, the repair of the main line is complete. Thank you for signing off on the project completion report, I believe came across last week. However, when they tested it, and Commissioner Mortensen mentioned this in the meeting last week, several sprinkler heads and some of the joints in the smaller lines have failed. So we are currently seeking bids to complete these repairs. This is a grant-funded project and the grant expires on May 31st. And so I reached out to the Washington State Department of Agriculture to let them know the issues that we have because the grant was $134,000, I believe. And the bill for the first part of it for these main lines was about $87,000. So we still have some unspent grant money and that grant money will be able to cover this next
good.
project. So I do have an extension that I will bring. I'll see if I can't get it on next Tuesday's agenda that allows us to extend this project to July 31st. Realistically, I want this project complete by the 1st of July. But when I chatted with the WSDA, I gave us a little bit of time to get the billing situated and get that taken care of.
Do you have enough time to do an RFP or how are you going to handle that?
Yes, I've been working with purchasing and there is currently a bid that's due June 1st for this project. Mhm.
And in the bid, they know it's got to be done by.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will be coming. I'll get that into agenda quick and get that to you guys for next Tuesday's meeting. Hopefully your meeting, is there a quorum day after a holiday?
What is after a holiday? I'm gonna do
It is.
Oh. Memorial Day?
Mhm.
I'll be here.
Okay.
And
Well, it's only your signature that I need.
how many, sprinklers? I think you told me.
When they turn the system on, when they put water to the system, they can't pressurize it because there's so many leaks
Yeah.
in the line. I had stopped counting at about 24 or 25. So we're gonna have to fully pressurize the system to realize what that will.
But your intent is to replace all of the sprinklers,
That's
right?
correct. And I apologize, I didn't explain that. So per fire code, when you have sprinkler heads in a fire suppression system, the sprinkler heads need to be replaced every 50 years. And so they go by the oldest date stamp on the sprinklers in the system. Our oldest date stamp is 1978, which means that in 2028, all of these heads will need to be replaced. So the plan is to replace all sprinkler heads so that we don't have to do this for another 50 years. Hypothetically.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
If you just replace the broken ones, then boom, all of a sudden there's another batch. So I'd
Well,
go for it all.
and the way it was explained to me is that even if we replace, say, 50, in 2028, those same 50 will still have to be replaced because we have to go by the oldest date stamp, which is 1978. So we would be,
But if you replace them all, you start the clock.
we start the clock over. We'll ask for 2025 dated. No, I'm just kidding.
It- I do,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Nope. Did you have questions?
I know I heard the chaplaincy event went awesome. There was like 500 people in there.
Yes.
The only thing I heard, and I only bring this up because in sitting in meetings, I know they've been working on replacing air conditioning units and stuff. People were said it got up like 80 and it was warm in there. So I didn't know if they were working on some of the units or what. It just was overpowered.
No, that room is not air conditioned.
Oh, okay.
That room that event was held in is what we lovingly call the bunker. And it was the building that was built in 1947 and they built the new conference center around it, but there's no air conditioning in there.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is actually something I brought up when the Johnson Consulting was here, when they asked for my wish list. That was one of the things that I put on my wish list was to improve that room because it gets used a lot.
Yeah.
Anything that's over about 400, we move to that room or they asked to be moved to that
Okay.
room.
That
So
explains it. So you're looking at that. That's it. Everybody loved the event. It just,
yeah, large
Said
events
a lot
in
of them were
December
sweating,
do the
yeah.
same thing. So yeah, it's a dress for the weather or,
well, we do that here too.
yeah, yeah. So that's all I have on the event center. I have one more thing for Silver Lake. Was there any questions on event center topics?
On the event center itself, the chaplaincy evening went quite nicely. Did you receive any complaints?
I did not. In fact, on the way over here, their
Excuse me a
contact was
second.
texting me, asking
Okay.
me if they can rebook for May of 2024. So that's always a good sign when they want to come back.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then last on my updates for you, the Silver Lake gift shop, the landslide that closed SR 504 at milepost 43 has strongly impacted the gift shop at the visitor center. May 15th was their scheduled opening date at Johnston Ridge. They had many school groups and bus tours scheduled to go up there, and we've been absorbing those at our visitor center at the Mount St. Helens Visitor Center. So
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
sure. So the bus tours that were scheduled to go to Johnston Ridge because they can't get there, they rescheduled or they are visiting the Mount St. Helens Visitor Center where our gift shop is. So
You could reschedule them to visit the gun range and the fine landfill we've got.
I wonder, would you like to see? I just read a report on the repairs. They're still assessing the damage and
I don't think they have any idea when they're gonna be able to open that back up, right? Yeah,
no, unfortunately that road is gone.
that was pretty amazing washout.
Yeah, nature is powerful. It was a little reminder of just how powerful she is. So the following sites are closed. Johnston Ridge Observatory, the Coldwater Lake Day Use, Lakes Trail number 211, the Coldwater Trail number 230, the Hummocks Trail number 229, Birth of a Lake Trail number 246, and the Boundary Trail number 1 is not accessible from the Mount St. Helens area. So it's definitely, it's yet to be determined how that will affect our tourism season. So far, it hasn't slowed them down.
So how has that worked out? Because you were telling me how it was really nice. The Port of Kalama, the cruise ship would come in and they'd bus folks out there. That's gone now, right?
So the Port of Kalama buses people in. There's one company that used to visit us 3 to 4 days a week. That actually was set. They were going to start going to Johnston Ridge, bypassing us because they get the better view at Johnston Ridge. And the weather's cleared up, so they're able to go up there. And so we were not expecting them to be back until fall. And that has changed. They're with us 6 days a week currently. Starting last week, we rebooked them, so they're coming to us 6 days a week.
Oh,
So when you're talking about the impact to us,
It's a
we're going to
positive
be much
impact.
more busy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
You have the resources to handle it?
Yes. So we brought in summer help a little early. So it's been good. So, and I was down a staff person who had medical leave, and she's back. So just in time, she just started back this week.
Yeah.
So
And inventory and all that, we're not. you think
I've been
we'll be
beefing up my
able to Stay
ordering.
up with it? Okay,
yes, definitely.
good.
you have little statuettes of the commissioners?
Not yet. They
Oh.
wanted to make them in China, and I said no.
They'd be bobbleheads.
I have some ideas. We'll sell those in the lobby. on
Yeah,
Tuesdays.
right, yeah.
We were thinking of having a dunk tank at the
Uh-huh.
fair.
Yeah,
That could be.
yeah.
Yeah, what's going to be in the tank?
I don't know. Don't hit the water.
It could be Merlot or Cabernet.
It's the
You do
county.
want volunteers, right?
Absolutely. The same volunteers that are going to eat the brownies for the brownie baking contest.
Oh, that's right.
Mhm.
Did I volunteer?
Oh, That's.
Did I get volunteered for that? Or
I
I don't
think
remember.
you'd be an excellent,
I don't think so.
let's see, is it an Epicurean? Yeah.
All right, if you make the motion, I'll second it.
Very good.
Oh, who's that?
Now he pops in.
I know, welcome.
Oh, he's been there a while.
Oh, okay. He's been the king of zingers this week. I'm gonna send him home.
So that's all for my updates, unless you have any questions for me.
I don't.
No, that was a great report.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
I love all the things the event center is doing. Thank all your staff over there.
Thank you, I will.
And thanks for the update on this, on the landslide. That was one of the reasons I'm late, because I try to call in or zoom into their meetings at 1.
Was there any updates?
No, I mean, that was pretty much what they're doing. They have updated the emergency response protocols that involve the Cowlitz County Sheriff's Department, so, and the emergency manager, but that was an interesting exercise in wordsmithing. But it hadn't been updated since the eruptions occurred, so. Timely, I guess.
I don't know why I didn't think about this before for the tourism. There's a highway ends here and picks up here because the bridge is all washed out. A zip line, you can transport people across and get a free ride.
Free? There's nothing free. It would be
Well,
fun.
I should say it's all
$20.
included in the
Yeah.
package.
First,
Yeah,
we might
you're
want to
right.
get some cars out of there, but
There'll be some old boys up there that'll figure out how to get those cars out, I guarantee you.
oh goodness.
Mm.
All for a sunset view.
Yeah,
So.
Okay, thank you.
Folks that were up there. Thank you.
thanks, Kim.
Yep.
Jennifer?
Good afternoon. Jennifer Mendoza with the Cowlitz County Noxious Weeds program. I'll continue on Kim's conversation there about the mountain. So we are waiting to hear how our treatments will occur this summer with limited access. I've emailed the Forest Service contact that I have and I'm waiting to hear back. So we have a lot of grant money waiting to be spent treating the weeds who are not going to wait for the landslide to.
Yeah, I
Clear
was
up,
wondering
so-
how that affected you, where your entry point was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work around the Coldwater Lake area and we go all the way up to Johnston Ridge. So I would say first estimate about half of our treatment areas are inaccessible right now. And the weeds aren't going to wait. So we'll have to figure it out. Maybe that zip line would be useful.
But even if you can't do that, you don't have extra resources on the team. That is to say, you got so much to do that it doesn't really impact your staff, right?
So we normally hire summer field technicians to do that work. And we usually have them start near the end of May or early June due to the timing of the weeds.
Mhm.
So they would start typically soon. And we have enough work as you work up in elevation to get us through to our next grant. So we start knotweed in late August. We can usually function with that crew having a full workload throughout the summer. If that's cut in half, I don't know if we will be able to carry that continuity, if they may have to be off for a few weeks, or if we can just increase the workload in the accessible areas. If we can't get to the inaccessible areas, then all of the work we've done to prevent furthering the seed bank will essentially be resetting the time clock. Because we've been preventing seeding from happening in many areas, and those seeds are viable. I can't remember the hawkweed ones, I think are a few years. If there's Scotch broom, that's another 80-year time clock. So depending on the species, we're basically it's kind of going backwards very quickly.
Speaking of Scotch broom, I was going up north on I-5 towards Castle Rock in District 3. And the Scotch broom was absolutely beautiful, but massive and extensive.
Yes, we're aware.
But
There is,
that's the DOT, right?
yes, if
Yeah.
it was on the freeway, it would have been DOT. They have been working to treat the Scotch broom strategically. The method that they're following is to treat the isolated plants and target those first, and then additionally treat the outside of the other patches when they can to prevent those large patches from getting even larger. So we're kind of working our way in. They don't have the resources to get to all of the Scotch broom in the county, unfortunately, and I don't know that anybody ever will, but
Yeah.
it's being worked on over time, so. And I know they're mowing as well and at some point.
Your ears should have been burning the other day. Well, actually, it was Monday morning. My in-laws had the piece of property on West Side Highway between Four Corners and the high school. And she had a letter and had to mow all that last year. So we're driving by and I looked at my sister-in-law and I said, well, you don't have to worry about that this year. You got, you sold that. So Jennifer's going to have to call somebody else.
Have to find a new contact.
Yeah.
then. Hopefully that's been updated in the parcel database.
Could you remind me again what the danger of Scotch broom is? It's not dangerous to animals, is it?
It's slightly toxic to animals, yes. It outcompetes their beneficial forage when you have it in a livestock setting. It's extremely flammable because of the high oil content, and it loves disturbed areas and outcompetes all the native plants. And it also has a very long seed longevity. It's viable for 80 years in the soil. It's a perennial species. It usually doesn't bloom for the first 3 years, so it kind of tends to go undetected until it flowers, and it's just very invasive.
But it's not like the Tansy, right, where you really cause your animals a severe problem.
It's not quite as toxic. And when I say that, I think you would need a smaller amount of Tansy ingested to cause the issues. So, but it does have some toxic properties to it.
Okay.
It's bad for many reasons, and especially in wildfire management. It's an important plant to get rid of. So a couple other updates. We've been very busy working through our Class A grant work, treating our milk and slunderflower thistles down in the woodland area and a couple sites up here in Longview. Many of our sites have fewer plants than in years past, so I'm excited to see that kind of progress. And then we've also been working with Public Works to do our false brome treatment. False brome is the Class A grass. And we did accomplish the roadside treatments yesterday, and we'll be working with our landowners in that area in the coming weeks. So we're getting that up to date. We've been working with the GIS department to update our map, changes in symbology and some other things that will increase our efficiencies. And we also did reminder postcards for Tansy. So anybody who received a Tansy letter last year got a reminder postcard that now is a really good time to treat it without having to go out and pull the flowers. And with that, we have our contact information and a reference that if they need assistance, we have a couple of programs to help. So hopefully those landowners are taking advantage of an early reminder and doing a less stressful treatment approach. So that's what I have for now, but any other questions related to noxious weeds?
Yeah, I think I asked this before and you answered it, but you didn't answer it 3 times. The technology of like a flyover, so you can actually spot from the air where issues are. Do you use that? Is it available?
We do not have it available to us. It is available in the industry, and they're actually starting to make more available aerial drones that not only do imaging of plants, but also treatments of noxious weeds. So there's one other noxious weed program that has used it and has shared their experiences with us. Fish and Wildlife has purchased the equipment to do so, and they're doing a couple of treatments this year via drone, I think up in Skagit County.
A treatment, so the drone actually comes up to the plant and says,
Yep.
"You're done."
It does. So the drone will fly over to the plant, and the pilot has to have their pilot's license and their herbicide applicator's license. And so they can see on all the cameras exactly what plants they're treating. It's actually a very targeted approach because you can get it directly on the plants that you need to get it on, and you don't destroy the other vegetation getting to those plants. And the force of the drone propellers pushes the spray downward. So there's less chance of drift there.
So, and do you get to see the maps that are produced out of this? That say you've got an infestation here and it.
If we were to do that, yes, that would be part of the product service.
But I'm thinking it doesn't make any sense for you to do the flyover and another 3 agencies to do the flyover.
Right.
So is there an ILA or something that?
Not that I'm aware of for other agencies doing flyovers, but if I would be interested in seeing their footage, if they had something, even if it was
Yeah,
publicly
I'm not
available.
aware of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of,
Interesting.
yeah, we primarily do our surveys from the road. So the drone technology, I feel, could be, I think it should be used in very specific circumstances, areas that are inaccessible in other ways, or dangerous to the applicator or the surveyor to get to for
Do you
high
have a
priority
drone on,
species.
do you have a drone available to you?
We do not, no.
I think you can buy them relatively inexpensively, like $500 still gets you a drone that is fairly reasonable
Yeah,
in its capabilities.
I think so. We would probably focus its use on public areas or work with a landowner to do a private survey if they had something
Yeah,
that they're
you'd have
concerned about.
problems going over
Yeah.
private land,
Yeah,
but there's so many parks and the forest and the right of ways,
yeah. So if any other public
and you'd have
agencies are
fun.
doing that, I'd be interested to hear about it.
Wow. Well, when they put lasers on those drones, all us politicians better be undercover.
You mean they'll hover over us?
Yeah,
You're done.
they'll start weeding out the crop.
All right.
It-
Well, I have
Jennifer,
nothing else for now.
WDFW has drones available for that kind of flyover. So You just have to make arrangements with them and they work it into the schedule for.
Excellent. Thank you.
That is interesting. I mean, it would give you a way to kind of keep track of that area that you can't get to now as to what it's doing. So
Yeah.
I jest about the technology, but it does have useful purposes too.
You know, and you're in a position where where the citizens pay a tax and they're not sure what they're getting for. But if you had year after year showing areas, we weren't able to get to this area, but the drone was able to, and look what happened.
Right. One of our partners who was working with their landowners on a high priority species was also able to provide that imagery to the landowner. And so, you know,
Yeah.
they have now an aerial imagery of their entire property. And so they can use that for other management purposes. So it's dual purpose imagery,
Good.
if you can get to it. So it would be a benefit for sure. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Kim, I see you out there. Did you have anything? No, you're good? Okay. Let's do it.
It's too bad we've exhausted all our good humor. Oh,
Let's keep it going for ARPA. We need a light mood for this one. Kaylee McKay, Cowlitz County Auditor's Office, and with me I have Camilla Eastman, the new senior accountant in the auditor's office. So what we have for the board today is a breakdown of where we are currently at for the ARPA funding. You can see we've been kind of looking at ARPA funding into overall categories. We have our revenue loss category where we were allowed to claim up to $10 million even. That category can be used for any governmental purpose. Then we have the 11.4 million, which has to be directly qualified under ARPA. It's a little more difficult to spend. We have a lot more tracking that has to be done. So if down at the bottom, we have an overall summary and you can see how much we've allocated and the remaining amounts in each. So revenue loss, we have roughly 312,000 remaining to be allocated. And then in our direct obligation category, we have roughly 1.3. In each of these overall categories, you can see the breakouts of the specific projects that we have either started, some are completed, some are still in progress. And you've got also the public works breakout projects. So we just wanted to get this in front of you and let you know where we're at. I also have a request for the board today when we're done going over this, if you guys have any questions. And then Kim is also here as well for a request to the board regarding ARPA.
Okay.
So with all that.
I know I've been told this many times, but when's the drop dead date for, when do we have to have it all allocated?
It all has to be allocated in contract by end of December 2024. And then we have until December 2026 to complete the work.
And the work has to be completed by,
December
26,
31st,
okay.
26. Yep.
and I'm going to put the date on this paper of today,
Perfect.
because I assume this will change a little bit. Will you keep this updated?
It changes every day. Some things I'm not, we are given things mostly on a quarterly basis for reporting purposes. So we will start coming to the board on a consistent basis, especially now that we're getting closer to the end. So we will refresh this every quarter and present to the board.
Okay.
Kaylee, do these totals include the last allocation that came much later than the original?
Sorry, which allocation are we?
So, well, you know, the 21 million figure is what we've been working off of for a long time. But
Yes.
then, late last year, we got clarification on another tranche of money that we were entitled to, along with tribes, local government and tribal assistance.
Yes, that is the latch funding is not included in this. That could be used for any governmental purpose. So that is actually sitting, we did the transfer out of ARPA and we put it into non-departmental. So that money is sitting in the general fund.
And that amounted to,
It was roughly 300,000. It wasn't a large dollar amount. Yeah.
Yeah, who cares about 300,000?
I'm, I look at that December 26th date and it seems out there ways, but some of these projects take some time and I've watched this board before my time and now we tend to want infrastructure type things that take some time. Like, for example, the last one we awarded was Nevada, the Beacon Hill Sewer District on that
Yes.
water force main and you just hope that it all gets, what happens if we get around December 26th and it's not there, the money just goes away? I mean-
So if it's in, yes, if the work is not completed by December
Yeah.
2026,
So
we
I
have to, we'll
worry
have to
about
return.
how long we want to wait to put some of this in use if I concerned about it going away. I look at Riderwood and I think that's a great need out there, but it sounds like they may get federal funding for that 1.2. Didn't we hear some of that?
I think we also got Shadow Mountain last year under a federal grant, so.
So when do we, I'm trying to figure out when do we make a logical decision that comes back and goes someplace else so it doesn't.
No, that's a very good question.
Because I know Beacon Hill had two other projects. I'm not, the one's kind of a wish list to me. It wants to
Mhm.
have a secondary line in case the first one goes, but the water tower one, I think was certainly legitimate. And I'm just in my mind trying to figure out, I don't want to sit and just stall, and then all of a sudden
Mhm.
we can't get some of these done.
And that caused me to look for the 2.6 million for exit 21.
I would keep in mind that the Woodland project is under the revenue loss. So the nice thing about revenue loss is at the end of our 2024 period, I can turn around and say we are using it for governmental wages and we will keep all of that in the county. That's the nice, easy part about the revenue loss. The direct qualification side
Oh,
is,
there it is. I see it.
yes, the direct qualification side is much more difficult because
That's the difficult one.
Yep.
And we have 1.3 unallocated at this point. And if, Riderwood and as Commissioner Weber said, if Shadow Mountain comes back to us, then we're gonna have much, much more.
yes. I do, and I would have to speak to Susan Eugenis also. 'Cause I'm not positive. I mean, they have tons of water sewer projects going. We
Yeah.
didn't even fulfill the full budget amounts for these projects. So I do think that, if one came off the table, she's got other projects
Yeah.
that we could
I'm
definitely
not
fund. but-
complaining by any means.
Yes, yeah,
I'm just pointing out what I'm seeing and
Yep.
trying to be ahead of the curve.
yep. And we have cut back on a few projects. When I went to the board previously and asked if I haven't heard anything for quite some time to reach out again, and if I didn't get a response, so I think there's at least 3 or 4 projects that I have removed off the list that I never heard back on. So they weren't any $1 million projects that we had promised funding for. They were a couple $100,000 here and there. So
Yeah.
But
You finally closed the loop on exit 21?
we are still in progress on the subrecipient agreement. I had sent out a request a couple weeks ago, and then sent a follow-up to be able to finish their subrecipient agreement, and I have not heard back yet. But we're making progress better than we were previously, yes.
Well, between you and me and Dennis, we can come up with all kinds of ways to spend it.
Well, I think as a board, you, myself and Commissioner Weber, we need to maybe take a hard look is what's the time frame we think is reasonable, because we like these infrastructure type projects. What's a time frame that's reasonable so we know they have some time to get it done? If you give somebody money and they don't have time to complete it, it's kind of wasted.
Yeah.
And
That sounds like, for the most part, a workshop on a Wednesday with all the players.
yeah,
I do
just
have.
jot a note and we'll.
We have a request from another Grange today, and it's for.
Are you moving us along?
What's that?
Are you moving us along?
No, I'm just
Good
trying
job.
to spend more money that directly qualifies. If there is no other questions, I do have a request from Rose Valley Grange. They are a nonprofit, so they directly qualify, just like the last couple beneficiary agreements that we have done. One was for the Friends of the Castle Rock Library, and the other was for the Sunnyside Grange. When COVID hit, they had to completely shut down and couldn't rent out the buildings, so they used their savings to pay for the bills that were continuing to come in. So they are requesting about $5,400. And it would be just like the other two that we've done, a direct beneficiary. It goes under the direct qualifications category, so it would chip a little bit away, not much, but so is there any questions on that one, or are we comfortable moving forward?
I've been out to that Grange, and it's one of the things that I like is it's a community effort.
Community
but-
thing, yeah.
But they got a lot of, I'm surprised it's only $5,400
Yeah.
is really what I'm saying. It's got dilapidation here and there that should be addressed. But
I think.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
Okay. And then also we have, when I was reading through the final ruling for ARPA, in there, it discusses that we have the ability to modernize our cybersecurity, which is where I will bring Kim up to talk about this. So her request would also go under this direct qualifying side as well. And so I will let her take over and give a little more detail on what she's got for you guys.
I kind of have a party basket of requests. I've been doing my due diligence to try to come up with some recommendations and assessing priority and driving by a dollar value rather than trying to guess. I guess if you want my fluffy comment, I have a vision for Cowlitz County information technology to be a leader in cybersecurity transformation of rural communities, just demonstrating the value of technology to strengthen and protect our community. So that's a value I'm trying to drive for IT and how we serve our community. It's a little disorganized, but what I'm requesting is funding for various projects that we need to invest in. For example, disaster recovery and backup planning. We don't currently have an offsite backup location. So I have been working on proposing and getting quotes for costs on what that would entail.
Do you want us to interrupt you at each
Yeah.
section? I thought we were moving a bulk of stuff out into the cloud. Is that not true?
Not everything, no.
No, I didn't say everything, but I said a majority of stuff is now in the cloud.
It depends on the stuff. For example, we have software as a service with Varonis that we could invest into, which would be a cybersecurity investment. Currently, they are an on-premise server. I think we have 5 servers dedicated to that application. And that application monitors our file networks and traffic to make sure that we don't have malware. We can identify sensitive data like HIPAA and CGIS data, but we could go to the cloud.
We send tons of stuff up to the archives, right? And what is it that we don't have backup for?
So backup is.
Offsite backup.
So we currently have a 98 terabyte Dell appliance that we back up our county infrastructure to. But that's one copy, and we have, revisions of that, and it's compressed, but we don't have redundancy. So we really don't have multiple locations or an offsite backup solution. Everything is in our data center. So if we were to be compromised by a malware attack and, crypto locked, we wouldn't be able to revert to our secondary or offsite backup.
Okay, this is a very tough issue. There are a lot of ramifications. So why don't you go ahead and we can talk
Sure.
subsequently.
So there are several avenues that I think we could leverage this funding opportunity for cybersecurity. For example, the electronic signature with CDI and DocuSign, we can leverage that for authenticity of signatures. So even though it's a smaller dollar amount for $12,000, that might be something that you guys would be interested in using. We deployed the Know Before phishing campaign button. That was something that was not covered by our Washington County's risk pool. So it was an expense that I felt the county needed to incur. It was $9,000 to add that in, and it is an ongoing cost to the county.
I didn't catch what it is.
It's the email spam functionality with the AI. So you can report an email that looks suspicious or malicious, and it goes through our AI process, and we
Okay.
can, tighten up our email security. Diving into deeper pockets of costs, we have our core infrastructure of switches that we're looking to leverage a grant from the Secretary of State through elections that only covers a portion of that infrastructure cost. And again, driving by cybersecurity, if we don't have updated and maintained equipment, it, is vulnerable to cybersecurity attacks. So I do have, I think for this year, we're going to have about a $40,000 out-of-pocket expense that's not covered by the grant to replace our core Catalyst switches.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail in there too.
Yes.
The Secretary of State is offering you only, how
A
much is
portion.
the entire package?
The entire package is $302,000,
Okay, so the shortfall is not that big a percentage.
and we get $80,000. So due to the lead time on equipment, we're not able to get that equipment in for the first year of the grant. So we're leveraging that for our telephone communications project. So really $160,000 would be covered by this grant. And then we would have to offset to make up the difference to 302.
So if I'm understanding, these are things that we're putting in place. And they're a cost to the county, but they also would qualify through ARPA. So your suggestion is to move those costs to use the fact that we can use ARPA funds to cover what we're doing.
Yes.
I don't think it's quite like that. You can, I think it's more like these are good ideas and we can get some funding for the good ideas, but it's not like the county shuts down next week if we don't fund the good ideas. And so the thing is, goes back to the vision statement. I want to do this, this, and this, and for that, I need this chunk of money. As opposed to, if you don't do this, you will have to shut the building down.
But we implemented the button already, right?
Correct. But this would be like an ongoing cost where essentially we
Oh.
wouldn't have to use county funds. Or we could address that cybersecurity opportunity to offset those licensing costs for a couple of years.
Yeah, how much? Yeah, I do appreciate hearing them all. I think we really need to see them on a one piece of paper with your sense of priority on it.
Sure. I don't have multiple copies of it, but prior to ARPA funding being allocated to the Public Works Department, I had provided Kaylee with a list of several projects that could help alleviate a couple years worth of licensing or infrastructure. So I can provide that, yes.
Yeah, I want to drill down a little bit
Sure.
on that. One of the things about the licensing is what do we do when the ARPA funds are exhausted?
Well, yeah, that's I'm more of a, and Commissioner Royer might chime in also, I'm more of using it to get it up, but then we take responsibility for ongoing
Right.
licensing. And I would, and just because I came out of Castle Rock Council last night and they were struggling with new software for cybersecurity stuff. And if it's available to the county, we should also make it that initial available to the cities within our counties to help.
That's
I
a
think we
valid-
have to think about that. Yeah.
Correct. I think what you're suggesting is the needs of the county and the needs of the municipalities should be pretty much about the same. So
Yeah.
why don't we work collaboratively?
Right, right. I'm not saying I'm opposed to helping out the county, but also not opposed to helping out initial costs for cities and stuff to get their stuff secure also,
Yeah, the
if we
good,
choose to go down that route.
the good thing about this, and I'll probably regret saying this exactly, but it's, this is an area where you actually have concrete things. It's not a political thing per se. So it's good if we can save the taxpayer regardless of where they live, that's good.
Yeah, if city of Castle Rock or the city of Woodland or Kalama loses funds due to a breach, then the whole county loses.
Well, and there are considerations of what kind of loss too. When you usually think of offsites storage, you're usually thinking about Mount St. Helens explosion or something. You're not thinking about the compromise that a malware comes along, because it may take you a while, and if the repository is supposed to be a duplicate of it, are you duplicating the problem also? And before you know it, yeah, I mean, it's just very tough.
Yeah.
issue.
Tim, I'm intrigued with the idea, but the request is kind of a huge amount. Can you report back with some paper copy Monday when you normally come back with? And at least I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if we're talking several $100,000, that we have something in paper as you mentioned.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And and this is just my thoughts on it. We're always, when I'm looking at this, we're always using, I don't care whether it comes through ARPA, wherever it comes, we're using taxpayer money. And so I don't mind if we get it, if it makes a big improvement and we pay the initial cost, but I don't like for us or anybody else that we have to support it year after year after year after year. I think if we do the job of getting it set up, then the county or the municipality or whoever it is needs to take on the responsibility of keeping it up after that.
Agreed. I will articulate that for Monday's meeting and prioritize the projects that I'm interested in requesting.
And I get the backup sites. I came from a world where I think we had 2 of them.
You had 2 additional, you had your main site.
Yeah,
and
because
2
if we had a
backup.
compromised line or something, then it would just switch over and we'd use the one out of Missouri or we'd use the,
Right.
yeah.
the magic word there was in a total different
Yeah.
part of the country.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if we helped you at all.
I think it's a great opportunity and I definitely value your feedback.
Did you get through your entire list?
No.
I,
It's a hefty list, so I don't want to over inundate you if you want to just see that on Monday, or I can go through in more detail today.
I don't mind if you run through, it can't be so much that you can't.
I hope you don't fall asleep. It's technology and sometimes it gets a little lumpy.
I think that's a comment about my age, but I'll ignore it.
Again, we do have some core infrastructure that needs to be addressed. And so that's where I'm trying to leverage grant opportunities and seek those out as best as I can. The Cisco Core Catalyst is a Lance-driven project where it would update our infrastructure. This would be something kind of like, sprinkler heads, like where it gets you up to date to where you can go for another 10 years type of a thing. And we haven't had that kind of investment in our
The
infrastructure.
problem with that analogy is that next week, Kim Bocut is going to be sure that those sprinkler heads will not be out of date.
And you're saying,
And in IT, we don't know that tomorrow, things don't last as long.
I understand that. I can't promise a 50-year core catalyst switch. So I understand technology shifts. I do believe that things like our telephone system, you're aware that that was an antiquated system that was due to be replaced. We also have switches and network infrastructure that needs to be addressed as well.
Yeah, if I could address that, actually, that's an interesting thing, like on the phone system, if we were down to the end, could we spend the money to pay for the phone system? It would have
Unless
to
you
come
think
out-
this phone system can fall under cybersecurity.
I did sell it as a cybersecurity address because if we're not able to respond to incidences, like for instance, improves our resilience. New telecommunication systems are designed with the latest technology and security measures. There's enhanced communication. So if we were to have a breach or if, a disaster of some sort due to homeland drama, it would allow us to communicate amongst ourselves and with our citizens.
So yes.
Okay, yeah, the reason I'm bringing that up is if we're coming to the end where we have dollars that we've been stiffed by others saying, oh, well, we won't be able to complete it. IT is always going to be a place where you can,
Yeah,
there's always more you can spend in IT.
yeah.
Right. And this
And,
is infrastructure
Yeah.
to articulate
and
that.
I agree with that concept. I don't know that I'm gonna place it above some of the other stuff if there's some of this available.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I would further say, I'm not gonna hog it just as a county too. We have municipalities that should be able to partake if we can do it all, great. But,
Yeah, when it comes to communication and IT,
Yeah.
I feel the same.
Yeah,
I'm kind of pulling in the noxious weed sides of things. We are addressing a lot of body cams, a lot of aerial footage and stuff like that. So there's also the retention and the liability in response to a cyber attack. With the high resolution of cameras, we don't have a large infrastructure and backup retention schedule to maintain those records as well. And I'm sure a lot of you can only compress a video so much before you lose integrity of the data.
Had you come up with something said indexing using AI, I would have said, yes, let's spend it.
Well, with AI, I could help write a nice proposal if you would like that.
With the help of AI.
Yes. I do have numbers for, it's right under $500,000 for a backup solution. And that would be partnering with our CHR creative vendor that's assisting us with our system administration. This would be in addition to where we would be in compliance with the risk pool. backup requirements and cyber.
That's to address indexing?
This is not indexing, this is backups and data recovery.
Yeah.
And that's at the tune of
And you
500,000
said 500,000
for a 3-year,
or what?
for a 3-year commitment would be $500,000.
At the end of 3 years, do I have anything?
You have cybersecurity resiliency.
No,
Yeah.
at the end of 3 years, unless I cough up some more, then I don't have it. But
I understood, yeah. So technically, no, it's like an insurance plan for our data and our cybersecurity hygiene. So this would be the multiple backup locations and infrastructure to support that.
A lot of discussion.
It's been,
Hold on, I got more. Going to the cloud, we do have our Varonis on-premise servers that are due to be replaced next year. By us upgrading to a cloud infrastructure, we wouldn't have to replace those physical hardwares. And again, that creates cybersecurity resiliency and protection of our data and monitoring of our data. The nice thing with that is by going to the SaaS model, we would get all of their modules, which includes their indexing tool that I was referring to earlier this week that you were interested in. So that's at the tune about 250,000. And then I don't know if you want to address building security and if that would be
Address what?
building security.
Oh,
There's been several concerns countywide in regards to like the museum. Kim's mentioned things over at the Expo Center. And then just kind of a presence for the Hall of Justice and Administration building. So I have cost for that as well. I don't know how that applies to cybersecurity, but I mean, the integrity of our departments being able to work. It does involve technology, but I think that one's a bit of a stretch. Do you have questions or anything? I'm kind of just going through.
yeah. How are we doing on the court AV system? And with that, you could probably finagle the words around and get that under ARPA somehow. The-
That one, we're coming under, it was, to be honest, a little disappointing to get through all of the contractual obligations exchanging between the vendor and us. They had some turnover at their company. We are doing the walkthrough this Friday to where they'll be on site, starting at the Hall of Justice before the court sessions to assess the equipment there, and then coming over here. We could spin it to be a cybersecurity thing. I also believe that we could leverage the franchise fees from Comcast and maybe reassess the KLTV agreement.
If I could use an analogy, what I'm trying to look for here is we heard earlier someone saying, your roads are in bad shape. And if Public Works Department had $100 million available to it every 6 months, they could probably get everything done fairly quickly. And the same thing, we've been lumbering along with semi-unsatisfactory stuff at the Hall of Justice for a long time. And a piece of that is because we're not quite sure what the right answer is, but it's really not a good thing when the courtroom has to shut down. And I don't think it's had to recently. But the analogy is there something that can speed things up, get things done in a reasonable manner? I don't need an answer now. I'm just
For
saying
that
that's the kind of
Well,
trade-off.
to answer it though, is we don't know what the problem is with the core AV. So that's why we're hiring a third-party AV vendor to come in and do a full assessment of all of our equipment, both at the Hall of Justice and then here in our administration building. So trying to fix the problem when you don't know what the problem is, half the battle. Like,
Yeah.
so we, again, are doing the walkthrough this week. Takes about 8 weeks for them to do their assessment, which will be at the term of our AOC grant funding. So there might be an opportunity for ARPA funding. I, again, believe that there's possibly an opportunity with the Comcast franchise fee. And we do set money aside, as my understanding, for AV replacement and equipment maintenance. So I do believe that there's funding specifically for AV. I'm again more concerned about our core infrastructure, to where I believe it hasn't necessarily been on a maintained in a continuous life cycle. I think we're kind of running it until it dies, kind of a mentality. And I'm just trying to take the opportunity to build out our infrastructure.
Another area, if we start to move stuff into the mall, we've got to communicate from here to the mall. And
Are we moving forward on that, or is that just another hypothetical?
I think we should move forward with it. So far, I think you'd have to say, you ain't done so well, sir. And so I'm not saying we go spend it now because there's nothing there at the mall, but I know putting fiber between here and there, it's going to be expensive, or you lease something and that's going to be expensive. I don't know what the right answer is. I was just throwing that on the list of.
The beauty with investing in IT infrastructure is that where we move, it can go with us. These are tangible investments into technology. Granted, technology dates. I mean, that's just the reality of our world, where it depreciates rather quickly, but.
Yeah, I'm probably not so optimistic because stuff in technology gets obsolete before the day it's put together, it seems like. And even our location is in question. Are we going to be in the mall or are we going to be here? We have to assume things aren't going to change too much along those lines, but can we get by with X amount of dollars for another 12 months? If the answer is yes, when it comes to technology, that's probably the path we should take. If it's a must, and that's where we count on you and the other department heads saying, look, I can't get my job done. Like in the case of the sprinklers, going back to the horse arena, there are some impending obligations, penalties if we don't fix stuff. We don't face that in IT directly. It's much harder to assess.
In a way, I disagree. I feel that there is an obligation because if we don't maintain our infrastructure, the whole county goes down.
Yeah, of
So
course, but I'm just saying electrons kind of have a lifetime that is fairly infinite, and we replace laptops on a schedule.
Mhm.
To me, that doesn't make any sense. Now, there are reasons you want to replace laptops, but it isn't because the clock just went tick.
I understand it's an industry standard and I try to stretch it as far as I can. So rather than replacing a laptop every 3 years, we do 5 years. For servers, we try to push it out from 5 years to 7 years and do extended warranty. A lot of
Yeah,
our
but-
infrastructure though is
But you're
beyond
making
this.
it sound like it's still driven by the clock. Like we've had discussions with the Public Works Department about, they wanted to replace their vehicles every 100,000 miles. And I'm saying, no, the right metric is it costing you too much to maintain the vehicle because it's too old, or you need a plow and you don't have a plow on it? Those are the kind of things you look at, not just because it's old. It offends me. I'm old. I'm only joking there, of course.
Commissioners, we have a hand up from our auditor.
I see that. Carolyn?
Thank you. Kim mentioned security, which is a really broad term, and I wanted to bring one specific security item to your attention that you may not be aware of, and it is in this building. It's the door locks the mechanisms on our external door locks. Part of the security that Kim's talking about is installing an automatic locking system. And I say this, I'm going to put this in perspective because in elections, we work some very odd hours, and that's according to statute that we have to be open for extended periods. And almost every election at 9 o'clock at night, when we're ready to leave, we can't get the doors locked. We have no automatic process for locking the doors. So we're left trying to call the after hours on-call person with facilities maintenance, incur the overtime for somebody to come into work, even though we've already put in a work order for this, somebody to come lock the door because the door locks aren't working. So the door locks on this building, I'm not speaking to any other buildings, but the door locks on this building, for whatever reason, you can't lock them remotely. They're not working to their fullest potential, and it is costing us money in, unlocking at times when they're not unlocked in time to open the building, and again, locking. So if it's something that qualifies as part of ARPA funding, I just wanted to add on to Kim's suggestion about security. It would be, I think, an efficiency that we would create. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I probably disagree a little bit. If I wanted to mess around with elections, I would just come in fairly late in the day, and I'd find myself a place where I could sit, maybe the toilet. And then after everybody's gone, in other words, redoing security here in the building means you have to know where everybody is. You have to know that somebody isn't hiding. There are many ways to defeat a system. So we really need to examine and do scenarios, case analyses of what it is we're trying to protect against. If it's against a vagabond, it's a different question. And if you're trying to protect against BLM or some such thing.
So that word security, I think we're kind of misinterpreting, you and I guess what I'm trying to express is we're paying staff. The building is open, physically open for specific hours. And occasionally, like with elections, maybe it's a Board of Health meeting or something in the evening. Occasionally it's open for extra long hours, but we're paying somebody right now to physically to come on site and unlock the doors because it doesn't have that remote capability. And then again, close the doors because it doesn't have that remote capability. And in those instances where the building hours are off, it's not working properly, or maybe the work order doesn't get transferred to the right person. So then we're calling somebody after hours. So I guess in my mind, that simple function of unlocking and locking the building it would be more efficient in installing some sort of remote automatic door lock that a facilities maintenance person could program into the door lock. So we wouldn't have to have somebody physically come out on site, and unlock that. I guess that was my.
I got it, but that's one side of the equation. When you say it's more efficient, I really want to see it laid out on a piece of paper, because in my mind, we're going to have an issue anyhow where people have to be available. But to revamp anything in this building is a big deal, because it's an old building, and there we go with age again. To do anything in here costs us a bloody fortune. We can't even get the AC to work properly. And it may be that we would do a wireless issue here. Those are defeatable also, because it's easy to jam the spectrum if that's what you want. So just identifying. So let's say it cost us $150,000 to put in locking doors, and I think that's optimistic as a price. how long does it take us to spend $150,000 with doing the method that we currently use? And before we decide, we have to see those numbers. At least I think we should.
I would agree with you. I wasn't thinking around that $150,000 figure or anywhere near. So yes, when you
Okay.
throw out that $150,000 figure, absolutely, I'm with you. I'd rather pay an employee to come out, but I know that we had a security firm come do some walkthroughs, and I don't know if Kim got those.
They're in front of me.
I'll let you take it away.
So what I was trying to do is, again, technology changes and I don't want to corner us into one particular platform. So we worked with Security Solutions, gosh, was it 2 months ago? We're having too much fun. I don't recall. It's recent. And the quotes that I have in front of me, it's more for the security camera, the visibility. And so the common element, the common ways of like the hallways, the stairwells and the perimeter, the parking lots is what I have quotes for. I would have to defer the key lock system to Will Tasted in facilities. I do know that they have several platforms. So not only are they incurring costs when they have to physically come on site for those examples that Carolyn presented, but due to the antiquated locks that we have, like for instance, the IT door, you have to physically plug in a device and then program it and code it to who can access that door. And then they have to go to the next door and the next door and the next door. So for somebody that has adding and deleting of IT staff, they have to go countywide to all of those doors. So there is additional costs that's incurred. Granted, I don't know if it's $150,000, but I know we have multiple antiquated platforms. So we have used this type of key card for that and then this system for that. But for security cameras, this is addressing the Hall of Justice, the museum and the administration building. And I also believe Adam Pitham's building location. What is that one called? Drug court? Yes.
Adam Pithan? Yeah.
Is that the drug court building? To the tune of like $120,000 for complete overhaul of our camera security system. What I'm really trying to drive behind that is the scalability. So as we add on different locking systems, it's compatible all into one platform. So you would have cameras and keys all within one place.
A whole lot of gristle here. I'm trying to figure out how to gnaw on it. Sounds like we have some project in, you know, we're to me, we're kind of at the end. We're saying, well, we can fund it this way. I'm still trying to figure out which ones we've okayed and which ones we're asking we should look at. And then theoretically, these are things we'd like to have, let's prioritize them. Then how we get the funding for them, we can figure that out. And I don't know where we're at. If there's stuff in there like the push button that we've already done, I'd probably have to see, okay, this is what we've committed to. This is how we're funding it. We could use these funds over here, then I can make a decision. If there's things in there we'd like to do because we have funding available, I still need to make the decision, or in my mind, decide, is it worth it doing whatever the project is? And it may be. I'm feeling a little cart before the horse, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with it. That make any sense at all?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, an economist might say there are things called the opportunity costs. We spend $100 here, it means we didn't spend $100 over here. And
Yeah.
I'm not up on what the priorities might be. That would require discussions. And I think that's what you're suggesting. You just don't know what is important. And
Well, I would love to see from their perspective, these are our priorities. If we can't,
right.
if we can only have one thing, this is the one thing. If I can have three things, these are the three things type things.
And I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those would be separate than stuff that we've already committed to and done. And then how we fund them, if that's available, sure, that's great. We can take a look at that. or if we need to fund it just because it's a good idea out of operations, we figure that out. Commissioner Weber, any thoughts, or you okay?
Well, the discussion today illustrates the fact that when you have staff advocating for spending money, we get to talk about it. We've mentioned a number of different projects that don't have any staff advocates. Some recreation opportunities that we mentioned on the list several months ago, so that the citizens who will actually be paying the dollars that we're using get a chance to enjoy some things. And the only way you can do that really is through those infrastructure things, which are usually buried in the ground. So you don't really get a chance to realize you're benefiting from those tax expenditures, or recreation facilities, whether it's an off-road vehicle park, or a horse and hiking and biking facilities. And we had a list of about 10 different things, and we've through a lot of our discussions, we've axed about half of those, but we still have another group of those recreation projects that shouldn't be forgotten. Our Parks and Recreation Committee did make a prioritization of that list, but they don't regularly come to these meetings to advocate for their decisions. So, yeah, if we're trying to spend $1.3 million, we need to continue that discussion. Somebody should be speaking for the folks who are paying the bills, and that's our children and our grandchildren. So.
Yep, those are valid comments. For me, it's not only are we going to be viewing the capital costs here, but one of the things I've called us as slumlords, we build something or we fund something, and then we don't factor in maintenance. And that's a lot of these things you mentioned have to carry themselves somehow, even if it's an evaluation can be, well, we'll tax people. Part of their taxes are going to be for paying for a marina. Okay. But we really need to face a life cycle cost up front. And we most often don't really do that.
Yeah. I'm trying to leave you with some directions so you don't feel like you're just out there, and the analogy of prioritizing and stuff. Are you good with that? Can you help us out with that?
I can.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So you come back to us on Monday with your list.
Yeah, and just one other comment. The thing about IT is it really impacts everybody.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
it's not like we're picking a little small group of people.
No, I get that. Yeah.
And the other thing that I've been working on, and between other things, is working with the public safety network. So Cowlitz 911, the fire districts, to build a healthy interlocal agreement. So maybe there's something that we could pay it forward in regards to like 2-factor security or infrastructure support. So
They'll
think
build
that
you a
there's-
statue if you can solve that problem.
what was that?
They'll build you a statue if you can solve that problem.
No, thanks.
Put that under
I'll go with the
revenue
bobblehead.
loss.
That one sounded like more fun.
Yeah. You'll be the bobblehead with the rest of us. Yeah.
But yes, I can prioritize my list. I provided that to Kaylee before, and I'll just rework it and then rate it for you guys.
Okay.
Is there any particular project of interest that you would like more detail on? Just to kind of recap, I addressed network infrastructure, our telephone infrastructure, security platforms that we currently use that need to either be replaced, like servers, or we can go to the cloud SaaS model. Is there any flavor that you're particularly interested in?
For me personally, I'm interested in what you see as the big item.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
And then do you want me to collaborate with Carolyn and other department heads before Monday, or just take it from the perspective of IT and assume that they all agree with me?
I'm a waterfall kind of guy, is where you would, we need to understand what you have in mind, and we need to understand the priorities you have in mind. And as we see that become substantive we can then bring more people on board. But that's not to say you exclude anybody. If you have an idea that says, whoa, I think the auditor could use this, by all means. The door stuff is and physical security is very much, it's a difficult thing. We don't have the kind of setup like where I used to be. Everybody had a badge. It was really 24-hour operation, including security guards and all that stuff. And there were alarms all over the place. We don't have anything like that here. And it would be a very significant change in attitude or whatever it might be to go there.
I'll be back Monday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So as far as ARPA goes, we can come back. Like I said, we'll be here quarterly for updates, but just to either start discussion now or get it on your back burner so you're aware or thinking about it. Is there a date that we want to set in place for funding that has been allocated and is not moving forward? Just to be totally honest, the Woodland project makes me very nervous. I think that it's great that it's in the revenue loss, but once we enter into that contract and finalize it, we're tied to it and we're stuck, and it's
Yeah,
not moving very quickly.
I share it's one of the biggest problems in the county, and I share your pessimism that a year and a half from now, we'll be still facing the same thing.
Well, you know what we could do? We could go ahead and ask Susan to use that money for road projects and just keep or designate 2.6 million for the road fund reserve. Pay it later with the other monies that the ARPA has done advanced funding for. We could move it around that way, right?
The ARPA can't go into reserved funds, but we could utilize it in the general fund. And that can be contributed
As long as
elsewhere.
we don't lose it and know what
Yes.
it's for, but
So that's kind of what I'm trying to express, is that once we enter into that contract with Woodland, we're tied, and if they don't spend it, then it goes back. So I don't know if maybe that's a meeting that needs to be set up. Like I said, I've been kind of going back and forth, trying to get things moving along with them. But I don't know if that's a meeting set, inviting them here maybe to discuss with the board and kind of giving them a better hard deadline.
What I can tell you, I think, well, I know what we'll do is we'll, on one of our work sessions, probably next week, we'll sit and talk about and try to give you some time frame on this.
Okay.
Okay, and I know we can get some information from Woodland. I know they applied for federal funding for that project, and I don't know when the time frame is for them to hear, but that might be I'm saying might be a drop dead date for that. If they don't get the funding, then there's no way going to complete it if they have to have that funding, and it's another year away.
Yeah.
But
we should probably be sure and talk to Peter Boyce.
yeah,
He's the administrator in Woodland.
yeah, I'll,
And just, if it's not within the realm of possibility that they take on that contract, then yeah, we can use it for some other things. Because that's really a washed out project.
yeah, I'll be,
And
next council meeting, I go down there, I'll get some aside time with him and do that, try and get some of that, but I guess our commitment to you, we'll try and come up with that. We'll try and come up with something fairly quick, so.
I think I may have you a solution.
Yeah.
Although I'm still very pessimistic. You can talk and talk, and there are just too many people into play there. What we could do is we've promised a 2.6, and
Mhm.
that promise should carry us to the end of 2024. But if we spend the money now, we give it to Public Works to fix the roads or something like that. When the time comes to do the chipping in for exit 21, if we have enough of a lead time, we do a levy shift on the road fund and get the 2.6 back that way. It's not perfect, but it's as close to banking it.
So that's kind of the same idea that we did with the latch funding, but we did it with non-departmental. You could do it with the 2.6 as well. We would use governmental wages to reimburse the general fund. And we could do that transfer to non-departmental and hold it there, or, I mean, it would be replenishing wages is
Well,
what would be the official
I'd like
ARPA.
the idea of Public Works using the money for infrastructure. And then if we have to, they can pay it back, if you will, through the levy shift.
Yes, but the Public Works is going to be on the same timeline
Of
requirement as
course.
well. So if we wait till the end of 2024, they're not going to have enough time to spend it either.
Oh, no, we
Do that
decide,
now.
we
Oh,
decide within
okay.
the next few weeks.
Gotcha.
Okay, we're gonna undo that from ARPA.
Mhm.
We still keep it as a commitment up to 2024.
And the
And
last
the other thing we need to find out from Public Works is when are we done with the commitment for Shadow Mountain and the Riderwood water system? Those are congressional earmarks, and
Yeah,
we because then that frees up money for other projects that we might have on our list.
yeah,
Right.
agreed.
So Kaylee, is that something you can follow up on? Do you have time to do that?
Yeah,
with
we
Susan?
will set something up with Public Works and see if we can get a better timeline and idea of their specific projects that they have.
Okay,
I think that's all I have, unless there's
Okay.
any more questions. All right, thank you, commissioners.
Actually, just so we will decide within the next few weeks about giving it to Public Works. And then assuming if we have to cough it up, we do it through a levy shift.
yeah. I would hope, I wouldn't even call it the next few weeks. I'd say fairly soon, next couple weeks.
No,
Yeah, I
The
think we
last
Yeah.
the last communication that I had from Woodland when I was trying to put together their subrecipient agreement, I had requested a project outline from them, and they gave me one, but it was it wasn't.
you could see right through it.
Yes. So I asked for more detailed information to put into the contract, and they said that they were starting the design soon, which means that we're in the very, very early stages. So I do think that the 2.6 is used for the beginning costs. So I think that if we can get into a contract with them, it does sound like it'll be used on the front end of the project.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with everything. That has nothing to do, exit 21 is a part of a bigger problem, just like Iowa was part of a bigger problem, and they focused on something that didn't make any sense to me without attacking the bridge issue. And exit 21 is that what they planned was a Band-Aid.
Mhm.
And I hate spending 2.6 million on a Band-Aid, but Band-Aid can stop bleeding temporarily. But as time goes on, that Band-Aid has less value, I think. Just
But I think what I'm coming away with here, and I can be corrected, is you'll help us get us a time frame on Shadow Mountain and the other.
Yep.
And then as commissioners, as BOCC, we will give you a time frame of when we think we're gonna drop dead some of these dates and do that, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
I do have a report from the museum if you're ready for it.
Do it.
All right. First thing deals with facilities. You may be aware that at the fairgrounds, the museum operates a cabin, a pioneer cabin, the Bush Cabin, and they have their annual work party scheduled for Friday, June 16th. Cleaning and some minor repairs. And the work party is from 8 until noon. If that's something of interest to you, give Joseph a call and volunteer so that he can expect you. That's something that they do every year to get ready for the fair. He also expressed some continuing concerns about the amount of graffiti and continued drug use on the front and back doors. They're building small fires. They can hide out there. In the morning, they get rousted out by our security guard, and that's not a problem. But in the meantime, they're lighting these little fires. A dumpster was ablaze across the street just last Saturday. So he was wondering if there is any work being done for getting cameras, security cameras, to help identify when stuff like that's going on. And he was aware that Kim was working on some kind of security camera system. He also said, thank you very much for the portable HVAC system for the office. He understands that you're not going to be able to get to the roof until August or September because of supply chain problems. They have fully installed the movable shelves that we've talked about in recent months. They're still raising funds for it. They have an application into the Cowlitz tribe, and they got $1,000 from the Give Big drive that was held a few weeks ago. And they've also are getting ready to move some bigger objects from the off-site storage over in Longview. They've been notified they have to vacate that premises at the end of July. So they'll be moving some big things back locally. One of the more popular programs is what is called the traveling trunk. That's for elementary school classrooms. We have a historical society employee that does the educational programs. She's back to pre-pandemic schedules, and she's also gotten approval from the Cowlitz tribe for the portion of her exhibit that reflects indigenous settlement. So that's going like gangbusters. And again, she can always use volunteers if folks are interested in spending some time with grade schoolers and talking about history. The next thing is that he is very close to installing the 1923 exhibit. Most of us are aware that Longview is celebrating its 1923 centennial, but so is Riderwood. And so both communities will be honored with this exhibit about all kinds of things that happened in the year 1923. And last but not least, he wanted to express his appreciation for folks who supported Senator Wilson's bill that passed both chambers that allowed museums to acquire firearms as part of their collections. They were being subject to the same kind of restrictions that the gun control laws were making. And this makes it similar to what theaters and movie companies have access to. So he's appreciated that. The governor signed that bill, and thanks for that. Okay, that does it for the museum.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay.
Anything else? Appreciate the
I do
conversation.
have, came over from the chamber board meeting, and they have extended a job offer for a new executive director, a guy by the name of Scott Newman, and he's the finalist, and there'll be an opportunity for folks to meet him on Tuesday, the 20th, at 11 o'clock at Mill City Grill, just before the board meeting. So if you're interested in meeting that guy, that's your date. I know Commissioner Dahl, you do represent Western Longview, and Arn, you represent the old city of Kelso, and that's the Kelso Longview Chamber of Commerce. So feel free to meet the new director. And let's see what else. Oh, CEDC last week. We heard a report from Dr. Zorn, superintendent of Longview Schools. He said the testing results certainly indicated that school children have lost ground because of pandemic. The school attendance was not good, and he said, we've identified where the problems are and taking steps to change the strategies to try to close that gap. It's good that they're recognizing that they did lose ground, that the remote learning didn't result in the kinds of education that they had hoped it would. So that was pretty much the program for CEDC last week.
Any
And
other comments?
that's what I've got for you today.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay. Everybody, thank you for the day. Gentlemen, thank you for the day. We will adjourn this.
All right.